Okay. Everybody see me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, hello, everybody. My name is Barbara St. John, and I have the privilege of managing the Memorial Support Program here at AOG. I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight for our second webinar in support of the Survivor Community Outreach. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it's a fairly new initiative. It's part of the West Point AOG Memorial Support Program, and it has evolved as a way to keep those who are connected not only by a love for and a commitment to West Point, but also through loss. And those two connections are unique and binding within this group. And we have learned through many focus groups and many conversations that for those who are walking the path of loss, it's a path no one chooses. And there cannot be too much outreach and too much communication and caring from those around them. But there can, however, be an appropriate time to give that caring and communication and outreach. So we're building this survivor community outreach, or SCO, as we call it, as a group on Sallyport. And the goal is to really share and connect and support this special group of people through events and resources and communication. And, you know, it's not an original idea. People over the years, many classes and societies have had the same thoughts and practice, but to encourage even more outreach and to share these best practices, we're having these webinars, the first two being geared towards those in the role of care coordinator for the class or society. And the second two will be focused on the survivor, where we'll actually start doing some outreach and programming geared towards them. Last month, we had 3 speakers who, as surviving spouses themselves, have been doing this outreach for many, many years to others who are walking their same path and also share that connection to West Point. They shared their methods for reaching out to other survivors and for maintaining that connection. And tonight, we've asked some people who have a more formal approach to the process as part of their class SOP and have offered to share, they've offered to share how they got to this point and what they do and some ideas that you can take back to your class and your society to do a similar outreach in what we call the care coordinator role. We hope that if you do choose to develop a more formal care coordinator role, that it will embrace all of life moments, marriages, babies, promotions, retirements, divorces, second marriages, and, you know, of course, ultimately death. So that being said, I would like to now turn it over to Stephanie Erickson, class of 93, who is the primary Sallyport specialist on the class services team and who has designed the content for the survivor community outreach group on Sallyport. Steph?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. As Barbara said, I'm Stephanie Erickson from the class of 93. I work for class services, but I'm also the class of 93 vice president. And so I get the privilege to not only introduce my class care support officer, but my friend Steve Coe. So just some background on Steve. He, after he graduated and served 5 years in active duty, he earned an MBA in finance from Northwestern University. Realizing he wanted to have a more personal and positive impact on individuals' lives, Steve switched paths and became a financial advisor. Through this, he developed a passion for helping individuals, including our classmates. So Steve has been a class officer since 2013 when he was elected as our treasurer. After serving as our treasurer for 10 years, our class added the role of class care support officer starting at our 30th reunion. Steve decided he could make a bigger impact on our surviving spouses and families in this new position and decided to run for the position, and he won, which was actually no surprise to our class. So He started in this current role just a year ago, October of 2023. So, Steve, thank you so much for coming here to speak with us. And it's just my honor to get to introduce you. So, please welcome Steve.
Thanks,
Steve?
Stephanie. Thanks so much. And thanks, Barbara, for organizing. So I listened to a replay of last week's call. I picked up a couple ideas, mostly that I think we need more people, and we will need more people. A little background. I saw what I think right looked like when my mother-in-law introduced me. Her her husband was class of 55, and although I never got to meet him, I saw many from 55 embrace my wife, who when she was a cadet, and I just was amazed at how close they kept. They always seemed to tie Natalie Wilcox, even though Bill had been deceased for more than a decade. They always included her on vacations and trips, and they had class of 55 cruises and big trips that they always included the widows on, which I thought was pretty fantastic. And they walked her down the aisle at our wedding, and many of them were financial people who'd helped her get 5 kids through college, and she never worked a day. So I mean, she did work as a mother of 5 kids, but she never had a paying job. So when I signed up for care support last year, I realized as treasurer, most of my time was spent trying to organize and support acute instances. We have had out of the 20 deceased, about 7 suicides, and maybe a couple more, but we don't want to pry because if sometimes the families don't want to share too much, and a couple of the more recent ones have been very painful. They've had a total of, I think, about 9 kids from 3 suicides that there was really no planning, no VA support, no filing with the VA, and we're still kind of in acute care mode for those types of families. In fact, today I just saw our class Facebook, where about half of our class is on our class website. One of our classmates volunteered to lead a GoFundMe for someone who committed suicide over 6 years ago, but at the time, there were personal reasons why the family didn't ask for support, but now they're asking for support. So, I'm sorry, Terry, do you have some?
No,
Oh, okay, I heard some. So one of the first things we did was we changed our constitution to include care support officer. I realized after last week's call, listening to, I think um, it was either Audrey or Suzanne that said they had all these team leaders and various people who picked up, some people writing books, some people setting up websites, some people sending out cards, that I need to enlist a little bit more support, or at least organize some people a little bit better, among maybe the widows and among folks who want to help out some of these families. So the duties that I have are that, and I'm sure other classes are borrowing the same paragraph, but just so everyone knows, the Office of Care Support Officer has a primary responsibility for establishing and maintaining contact with all surviving family members of deceased classmates with the aim of keeping them involved in the class family. Duties include keeping up-to-date rosters, names, contact info, getting them apprised and involved in class activities, providing info on benefits and resources, coordinating with the memorial articles officer, and coordinating with the treasurer, send flowers to funerals or make donations in lieu of, and may coordinate with other class members from time to time to arrange social and emotional support for class members who are in need. For us, because suicide's been such a big deal, we have detected, and people have come to me with, hey, we need to activate a network call. We've had a couple instances where someone's posted something on Facebook and we didn't like the tone of it. So we activated everyone in the company who knew this person to immediately like just reach out and start calling the person or texting them or whatever way they felt was comfortable to reach out. And that I think that's been effective because but I don't want to jinx anything. I don't like to say we're out of the woods. I thought we were out of the woods at our 30th reunion because anyone who hadn't made general was already getting out. And but we had a couple, we had one just recently. So that's more or less the gist of it. We're contemplating creating our own 501c 19 so that we can provide direct support to family members. We don't want to make it a golden parachute when someone passes away, but we just want to keep someone from falling through the cracks. And I try to call the widows who will pick up my call at least once a year on the anniversary. It varies. One's a KIA from combat. We only have 2 out of 93 that are KIA. The rest are in suicide, and we're starting to just pick up some illnesses and heart attacks and car accidents, things like that. But I've realized that just from last week's call that I need to kind of organize a little bit better, because one person can't be in contact on both Facebook, email, letter writing, card writing, all the ways that Suzanne and Audrey, and I apologize for the third lady's name I couldn't remember. In terms of reaching out, because not everybody's on Facebook. We only have about half our class on there. But that's the challenge. We're at 20 out of 1,030 deceased, and we know it's just going to get bigger and bigger. I know memorials articles, we're trying to push out, hey, everyone should write their own article. But I said it to my wife and she looked at me like I had 2 heads. I said, hey, don't you think we should write it? And she said, no, I'm I think she's superstitious about it. But not everybody gets an article. If you don't write one and you have good longevity, probably no one's gonna write it for you. So you might as well start writing it, or at least get the facts straight. Anyways, I'm preaching the choir on that one. Thanks, Barbara, for your time.
You're welcome.
And
Thank you.
I'd love to hear suggestions and things that I haven't already mentioned or thought of.
Great. And you will, I promise. Along the lines of not wanting to write your own memorial article, I can tell you from what we see here in memorial support is not only memorial articles, but obituaries and anything that is needed after someone passes that you can do ahead of time, any planning, any vision, any thoughts you have for your final resting place or your whether it's casketed or cremated or all of those things. Anything that you can put down now is going to help those who are left behind. And so I encourage people to, when they're in the car, hit record on their phone and just start talking and talk about what your vision is for your last day and Do you want a chapel service? Where do you want to be buried? Where do you want to put your ring? Do you want it in the ring mount? Do you want it in a drawer forever? Any of those decisions that would be left to somebody who might not be sure what the correct decision is. And so this is more of our pre-planning checklist. But since you brought up memorial articles and the hesitancy that is very common because, and I can sympathize with your wife, it is a little superstitious. But it's part of it. And unfortunately, it's inevitable. It's the one commonality we all have. But hopefully when this happens, we're going to, through these calls and this work and this outreach, we're going to build a network. And I agree, Steve, you do need a team. And that's a good segue to our next speaker, Jake Jacobson, class of 1972, has offered to share his insight. And I believe they do have a team approach on the class of 72. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about John. He was born and raised in Maine and met his wife, Pam, vacationing in Maine, and were married in 1972, just 2 weeks before they went off to Germany. They have 2 children and 4 grandchildren and live in Fairfax County, Virginia since 1993, except for a couple of years when they were in Japan. They've been blessed to inherit the family home from Pam's parents in Maine, where they met 53 years ago, and they spend their summers there. He's a commissioned officer in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers from 1972 to 2000, and has also taught civil engineering at West Point. There's many more things that led to his rank before his retirement as a colonel. And since then, he was the vice president and principal project manager at Parsons Brinckerhoff and successfully managed the delivery of several multi-million-dollar major infrastructure products, including the Woodrow Wilson Bridge Replacement Project. So we thank you because I have been over that bridge and I appreciate your efforts. And he has been in this role of care coordinator for 7 years. So with that, I will turn it over to you, John.
Thanks, Barbara. I've only got 3 pages finally spaced, so we'll see how this goes. I just set a timer to try to restrain myself. But background of our classes, thoughts, and what we've done in this area for a while. Between the 35th and 45th reunions, sometimes reunions make landmarks for making class decisions. We engaged one widow. We'd had a classmate killed in a car wreck, and she lived there near West Point, and she was motivated to help with widows, and her name is Sam Bilodeau, if you know of her. And she did a great job of reaching out to new widows and making herself available to them, make sure they were taken care of at reunions. Many, not many, several did come to reunions. But after the 45th, we realized that we probably need a little more classmate support rather than just leaning on a single widow to do something more. And we didn't have an election because I don't think the idea of the thing existed, but my class president, who knew the new president, kind of buttonholed me, and I said, sure, I'll be a widow coordinator. I can do that. Not that I knew anything about it. That's what we called it at the moment. But it wasn't long after that we realized that there are other kinds of survivors than widows. There's widowers, there's classmates and their spouses who've lost children. And then there's, as you get older, I can speak for this a lot, you start to get acute and chronic illnesses that impair things that need care. And then, of course, the horrible different impairments of cognitive or mobility impairments that really change qualities of life and needs. And that can lead to, all those can lead to some financial things that might be helped. After our 50th, when we'd been mucking along with what we were doing, we said, we need to write this down in a we call it a charter. Let's just codify what we're doing and then work that. So we worked that issue for a while. And we think we at least got a final form for continuity this past summer, really last spring, but kind of this past summer. We know that we need to updated, but at least it's there. It only consists of 3 pages, the charter, but it's got several annexes that give some meat for the things we're trying to do. And it will still be adapted. And when we did get that draft done, we did show it to Sue Irons, who helped us with some of our veterans support ideas, at least resources, and with Barbara. We looked at 77's work also. But our concept was not to specialize committees, but was to leverage the chain of regimental and company reps we've been using before the 30th reunion. Before that, probably they were more organized around fundraising and gift giving, but there was a need just to be sure that every company had somebody that could find everybody else in the company. That was the main goal. But we evolved that into coming up with a set of responsibilities if you agree to be a company rep, and goals if they try to do it. The charter itself, our class president wrote a cover letter to kind of explain the intent and execution of it, so it's not as much of a manual as a descriptive. But then it gets into it. We have a organization such that our executive committee, which everything class uses that term for the president, vice presidents, and what have you, identify and appoint the committee members. We are now at 4 committee members, one that comes from each regiment, and every one of our committee members has been a company rep for a long time, so we understand how that function works. We have 2 reps per regiment just to spread it out. We're, of course, a 36 company class with 4 regiments. And then the XCOM picks or appoints them or cajoles them, or however you want to call it. And then they provide us the guidance and approve the charter. The regimental reps, we ask them to find the company reps. So the goal is, we're pretty much there, have a primary and alternate rep for every company that's for sure willing to do it and doing it. We created the term constituents of the class, and we call that the living graduates, spouses, widows, and occasionally associate members that want to be engaged with the class, which we have a few. You know, guys that were in the class but didn't graduate. So that's our constituents. And then those are the ones that we want to be sure we know where they are and have all the information we can on them. And our vision is laid out as all constituents receive the level of connection and support that we're able to provide and that they desire. So both of those, go on a big scale. We set the responsibilities for company reps to maintain accurate contact information. And we added a requirement that they ask each constituent, which is basically, in this case, a widow or a classmate with a living spouse or a single classmate, to identify what we call an emergency point of contact, a primary and alternate. Next of kin is what some people say, but that doesn't work because it's not general enough. We've got guys being supported by their ex-wife's family. It just depends. So I know one of my company mates, his emergency point of contact is his fellow partner in a law firm. It's what he wants. But at least we know that we've got somebody else. Well, we don't know. We are trying to make sure we have somebody else that we can touch. And of course, we ask classmates and widows to provide that information to keep us as they're responsible. And then we set goals because we don't want to sound too bureaucratic and thou shalt. So goals sound gentler than duties or responsibilities. The goal is that every company has a primary and alternate rep, that they serve as a conduit of information up and down, and to maintain that accurate contact information. And we ask them to update it, our president once every 6 months, but at least annually. And more about that in a bit. They ask them to get the level of connection that the constituents want, and that they give the alternate rep some roles and duties, so he's continue and assist as needed if something happens to the primary. So we ask them to have a process, each company, this is a goal now, to check in with the company constituents, again, at least annually, and just find out if there's concerns. And that check-in really should be done in person or by phone with a voice going, and sometimes that's a lot of work, so spreading it out is a good thing to do. always to attempt to reconnect with the disengaged classmates. We have those that don't want to talk to us, don't want to hear from anybody, but at least like to know where they are and how to get hold of them. We've got those that we don't, but just trying to connect to them. We call it an immediate action drill. We wrote a little bit on that. I'll talk somewhat more, but the goal is every company has a process to execute that immediate action drill upon notification of the classmates in distress or passed, or a wife has passed, or any other reason. We asked the company reps to be the lead on support to widows. And that's a little bit decentralized and maybe too decentralized for some. But we give them some ideas and go-tos, but part of it is if they don't feel that they're getting what they need, they come to me or us, and we've had this already, where a new widow is just kind of floundering and the company rep was not sure how to handle it. And I had a couple of widows in my back pocket that I knew would help, and they called in. The goal is some timely submission of memorial articles for everybody that passes. We already talked about that, and that stays on our goal list. The information update, again, we try to do it annually at a minimum, verifying all contact information, verifying the primary and alternate emergency points of contact, and any concerns, needs, and desired level of connection they have. And finally, our broadest goal of all is no lost classmates. Account for everybody. So we created some policies to go by with this, because some people get heebie-jeebies when they hear some of this stuff. So if we wrote these policies down, I hope that would help smooth some of those personal things over. The 100% of the program is voluntary. Nobody has to do anything they don't want to do. The participants understand the guidelines and policies, so we don't want to hear you didn't know about it. No excuse is not an answer this time. Participants shall hold one another harmless for any action that's executed as a part of the program. So there's no liability, and we mean it. Any information is provided as assistance. There's no professional or fiduciary liability whatsoever. It goes for doctors, it goes for CPAs, whatever they may be. They're just trying to help or to point into a resource. Confidentiality is absolutely strict. Further dissemination of any situation is only by explicit and clear authorization by the member, and that has to be asked for. And certain things, we want it in writing. Talk more about that. Anybody can terminate their involvement anytime they want. That's the part of the voluntary part. We encourage people, classmates, and constituents to keep the AOG database information up to date, which is basically spouses, widows, and the living grads, and those associate members that want to do it. But if they don't, we ask the company to try to maintain the information in rosters. There's certain information they're asking for, especially the emergency points of contact, that AOG does not ask for. And to my knowledge, AOG doesn't ask for phone numbers and emails of spouses. If they do, I don't know about it. So when a spouse becomes a widow, there's the first chore is to get her data. I know that AOG sends them a letter. I kind of wish I got some of the responses from those who knew what they were, but nonetheless, that any information that somebody provides that's not with the AOG, we tell them all it does not leave the company level. We don't do any roll-ups at a higher level than the company for some of this information, because I want them to give the information and not feel like somebody else is going to have it. And that has been sensitive with things like children's information for emergency point of contact and things like that. And that's our policies. I think I hit them. The communications we use, we have a Facebook class, and it's more of a fun theater. It's not really, we repeat things there, but there's not enough of the class that use it. It's less than half, I think. So we do use the email distribution list that AOG maintains, and that hits, I'm guessing 80%. 20 classmates and 3 widows, and they have the information on all but these 2, and they have emergency points of contact in all but 5 or something like that. And then checked with everybody and everybody's okay, or they checked everybody, got this. That's coming. In terms of the meat of the charter, what am I doing for time here? Oh, I'm down to 2 minutes, Barbara. I could shut up now because I've got discussions of the annexes that we created. If you want me to keep going, I will.
No, you can keep going for a little bit.
So the annexes, we have one for the assistance areas that we cover, just list them. And we call that constituent outreach, memorial articles, spiritual outreach, medical information, veterans assistance, and West Point AOG support are the areas that we've got some degree of help there for you people to use. I wrote an annex about the immediate action drill, and that's things that they need to do real quickly, what level of detail to go, and who to address, and what to find out can be disseminated to others or not, for any kind of support that makes sense. But usually it's a death, and it could be a serious illness. We have the organization in there, which is just the rosters of the reps. We have constituent contact information about what to do with it, more detail than what I just described, to encourage using the My Profile or Vital Stats there at AOG, and then what things they should do at the company level. And they should judge what level of degree they want connected. Some people want no connection, but many, they just want to hear from the company, and that's all. And that's good to know. They gotta figure that out. And some want everything. They want emails from the AOG, they want everything they got. More than that. So we've got a little annex on the best practice suggestions on how to connect, frequency, how to share the workload with the company. We've got memorial article support, where we go into more detail there about who to get help from with the company, within AOG, and then again encourage to use the AOG site for at least getting the information in to start your memorial article if you don't write it out. We have, my timer just went off. Medical support, we've got just a list of 3 or 4 classmates that are physicians, and they're willing to try to find help anytime we call them. Has been used, I'd say, several times. The spiritual outreach, we had a kind of a sidebar of a prayer team going, and we pull that into this. So those that want to, somebody's making noise there, want to have their need listed in a prayer list, we do it monthly. Right now, it's going out to 145 people. We do weekly Zoom, those that want to. That averages a couple dozen max, maybe 13, 14. But having that list of concerns updated monthly and the outreach to do that really does tie a lot of people together. And there are people that have needs and they don't want to share it with anybody. So we don't. You can always find out. Did you hear so-and-so has got this, and can we add them to the prayer list? Is it that they want to be added? Ask that first. We've got our resources annex that has a lot more links to the kinds of things that AOG is doing, which you can get through the Veterans Administration, which you can get through various needs. And I will stop there, unless you want me to answer questions.
I think we're going to hold questions till the end. We've got one more speaker, but that was wonderful. I'm hoping that your team is willing to share that for those who couldn't write quick enough, so that we could put it up in the toolkit and it can be emulated, because the structure is terrific. There are some things that I would like to dig down further on, mainly suggesting that in those conversations, if they don't want to share it with AOG through the company rep, then encouraging them to definitely give us the spouse phone number and email address, because it is a challenge. And when we do send out that letter that you mentioned, we do ask for that updated information, but it would be better just to have it sooner rather than later. And, along the same lines, if people don't self-report, when we don't know, right? Sometimes a grad won't self-report that they lost their spouse, his or her spouse. And so we learn 2-3 years later, and so if they're not telling us, are they telling their classmates? Are they telling anybody, or are they just home alone and not getting any of this care or outreach. So we want to encourage that communication, and I think that you are definitely far more advanced than many classes, and I would love to be able to share what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, our charter is certainly shareable, and I promise you, we wouldn't mind critical comments too, so.
Well, I don't know, I don't want to call them critical, but I think that, you know,
That's fine.
we all have ideas, right? So, and together we'll create wonderful outreach. Okay, thank you so much, John. So our third speaker is Mr. Jim Sullivan, and he is not only graciously participating tonight, but he is doing it as a pinch hitter in the 11th hour, very generously tagged in. And so I appreciate that. Along with Jim, we welcome back Donna Jackson, who probably is, there she is. She was the third presenter that you referenced, Steve, last month. And so Jim has some structure that he's happily going to share with us. So Jim, I will hand it off to you. You're still muted, Jim.
How's
There
that?
there you
Oh,
go. Now we got you.
okay. Thank you, Barbara. I'm Jim Sullivan. Everyone calls me Sully, and I'm the president of the class of 1970, and have with me tonight with us we have our honorary class classmate and our beloved sister, Donna Jackson, widow of our Billy, a fine officer, fine soldier, God rest him. And Donna, I asked her to be the chairman of our class family committee. And so she has been beyond, there's no way to describe the level of comfort and peace and service and that she has given us. We've had a rough couple of years. We've lost a lot of people. We've lost 131 of our brothers. And Donna, as soon as one of us dies, Donna's right there. She gets her arms around that widow, and it's almost magic. And the sorority that has formed there is good for all of us. It's good for the heart. Also got our class genius. He's our kind of a registered genius. He's registered, I think, in Wyoming as a genius, maybe. Steve Wilson. He's an old systems engineer guy, figures anything out, anything. It astounds me. It's always astounded me. But I asked Willie, I said, we're way behind on memorial articles, and we're really not doing right by our brothers. We got to account for them. We got to memorialize them. We got to honor and love them. And Willie said, okay, stop there. I'll take it from here. And off he went. And he's got his sidekick, our buddy Crash Warner, another classmate. I don't see Crash isn't here tonight, I don't think. But the two of them have taken a large backlog. As I say, we've lost 131 men, and I think more than 100 of them were unaccounted for, something just like that. We're almost caught up now. If you don't mind, I'd ask Steve to say just a word or two about that effort. And I'd ask Donna just to say a word or two about that effort. But the idea was I go along with Steve Coe on that. We need more people, got to get more people involved. I wasn't going for any kind of efficiency at all, just more involvement. And boy, it paid off. So Steve, could you take it for a moment and turn it over, please, to Donna?
Absolutely.
Thank you, brother.
Very simply, when Jim became our president, we had a backlog of almost 60 unwritten memorial articles going back 25 years. And we, very much like the class of 72, We have a regimental representative, and we have a company representative that we work with. We also work closely with Donna because of the situation with the next of kin. But as of now, we have, I'll also say, we're very sensitive not to get too focused on a memorial article for 6 months, because there's a grieving process, there's some anger, there's a lot of things that happen. So we lay the groundwork, we gather the data, but we don't really push for the memorial article for 6 months or so. And as of right now, we have no memorial articles that are over 2 years old. And that's our goal, that we will keep everything current to 2 years. And Donna is a big help. I would also add, in it, not only is it about publishing a memorial article in TAPS, even if we cannot get permission to publish, we prepare a memorial article and put it in the Cullum file, because someday the situation may change. So we want to make sure we've captured the information, and we've got that done now. And Don has been an amazing help. And I have to say, for Donna and I, we bond really well because, and she taught me that, but it took a while after Billy Jackson died for Donna and I to sit down over breakfast and do his memorial article. And we shared a lot of tears and a lot of laughs doing that. And it was the right time, and we're moving on from there. And I love her like a sister, and she's great for our class. So I'll pass it to Don.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, I'm sorry. My computer threw me off a while ago, said there was a big error. I don't know why y'all would be an error. So now I'm on my iPad. I'm learning to do technology. So anyway, this has been, Jim has just, when Jim came in to be, was voted in as president, he just took over. It's been like 4 or 5 years, I think, 4 years, not as long as John Jacobson. Y'all have really done, that's awesome. And Jim has really taken over and organized everything. I'm honored to be an honorary member of the class. That happened this summer. But I'm so honored to be able to contact the widows. And everybody's different. As you know, some want to hear from you, some don't want to hear from you, some will hear from you later. And I totally understand that. And you just have to respect everybody. And communication, some do by text, some don't answer the phone because they don't know who you are. They don't answer emails because they may go to your junk mail. So I have learned to do a sympathy card with all my information on it. And some of them I hear from a lot of them, and I have continued to hear from them. I started this in July of 21, and I still hear back and forth. It's like it is, as Jim said, it's like a sisterhood, a sorority. I have great contact with these ladies, and I watch the ring melts. I let them know that when they're buried in Arlington a year later, I try to make that contact then if I know about it. And Jim is wonderful. He calls the widows for their husband's birthdays or their deaths every year. Jim is contacting them. So I have lunch with people when they come through Houston, and it's a good thing. And I'm just here. And if I can't answer them, which a lot I can't, but I was a librarian, so I know that I can get someone to get an answer to them. But Jim and Steve have really taken on a project that has been needed. So Thank you.
And then one last thing, Barbara, Steve and Crash, Steve's the chairman of our class memorial committee, but he's expanded that in many ways. And we're doing some work with the Cullum files and a lot of other stuff. All this is part of Steve's ideas here. And I think, I don't know, Crash might be enough, but you could probably use another guy, couldn't you, Steve? Yes, I don't know. But anyway, I
We're
can't say
doing
enough
fine.
about,
We do fine and we get good help from AOG.
yeah.
And
Mm.
I wish there was a way we could better educate every graduate on the value of their Cullum file and the safety of their Cullum file. That the protections that are there, the information that are there, I couldn't do memorial articles without those archives. And we're trying to get those archives up to date. So I value my years with Marilee. She was so helpful, and I continue to value the Cullum file, the vital. I can't get people to write their memorial article, but I can get them to fill out their vital statistics sheet and get that up to date and get it in their Cullum file. That's really important. And then Donna, you have a form which I call the executor's inventory, which I provide to people, which is, Barbara, as you said, where do you want to be buried? Who do you want to handle your estate? And it's all those two documents. I've completed them. My brother has the executor. Cullum file has my vital statistics. And I know if anything happens to me, the information is protected but available. So that's the real key.
And
Yeah.
Barbara, that new booklet from AOG is absolutely fabulous.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing it with everybody.
It's fabulous. I'm on a Zoom tomorrow night with the guys, the 70 guys of the board, and I'm going to send them the scan, where you can scan to get the booklet personally.
Yep, the QR code.
If that could get out to every classmate, I mean, it's wonderful.
It is. And I thank you for your efforts in helping spread the word. What Dawn is talking about is the pre-planning checklist. That is a 24-page guide developed over a couple of years. And a lot of classes have a similar document, but we used those as reference and we used a lot of research and we came up with our own. It comes with a very nice little binder for everybody to put their items in. It's still the soft rollout process so that we can make sure we can keep up with it. And now it is actually available online as a downloadable document. And so we're going to start the promotion of that later this fall so that we can get it into more hands. Because even if you already have a book or a box or a start to the information that someone needs after your passing, you might find one or two other things just to add to that. I did have one question before we open it up to anybody else, and that is not necessarily to Donna or Steve or anybody. Anybody can answer it. John Jacobson. You talked about the outreach to surviving spouses who, in most cases for your classes, are still the wife. But what are the efforts that you're doing when the grad loses their partner, their spouse, the wife or their husband? Is that still something that Donna handles? Is that someone else in the company reps? What is the process do you have a process when it is the grad who is the survivor?
We had, maybe somebody else would like to speak, but we had one of our guys who works sort of hand in glove with Anna, who is our widow rep, and we haven't had too much of that.
Oh, good.
Thanks be to God, but
Yeah.
We got him ready.
Okay.
We've got a guy kind of designated for that.
Great. John?
Rick Thibodeau, and he's a Cajun. You know, he's all set. One last thing before I just like to say that all the work we wind up doing with the AOG is wonderful. Thank you for all the cooperation. It's really makes a difference. And
Thank you.
Mark Beeger is a good friend to our class. And every interaction we've had has been wonderful. And I see Jennifer Reed there. She was our tour guide.
Mhm.
Hi, Jennifer. Good to see you again. And anyway, thanks for everything, Barbara. Thanks a lot for all the help.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Oh, there's the dog. Sorry. All right. John.
We have a couple of widowers that earlier on that volunteered to call the new widowers when we realize them, and that helps. And then probably the bigger thing is just that as long as there's a connectivity and relationship with anybody in the company, there's somebody that to talk to. And the biggest thing we've done is try to get the word out when there's going to be services so people can attend services and be there. And that means a lot to them. Having that.
Great. All right. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for any of our speakers?
We're going to have to check off. We've got the dinner engagement that we have to head out to.
But this was really very helpful. Thank you very
Thank
much.
Oh, good. Good. Thanks for being here. Does anybody have any questions?
I just want to highlight, hearing a lot of this discussion, that an effort that I discussed with Desiree Gibby. I did not know that Memorial Services is attempting to locate where graduates are interned. I had been working on that. I'm the class 81. I've been working on that for our class, and just in a conversation about something completely different, it came up that I've been working on it, and we were able to compare notes and, you know, reconcile some of the things that, you know, each side of the equation was trying to settle. But it's a good effort, but I don't think there's much visibility for the fact that it's going on, especially, you know, the gentleman talked about losing 130 in his class. I don't know how much effort's there, but I was kind of surprised for the class 81. Our losses are only at the 65 or so. They were amazingly accurate in what they had already captured. I would also question, who is the AOG care officer? You know, we're all kind of military people, and we all kind of look for a hierarchy in functions in our organizations. And so it seems to me, I mean, it's a big portfolio. This is the thing we've been discussing in the class. Some of the things that are going on, we're already doing, someone's already responsible for them, and we need to corral that. But some things we're not. And, you know, hearing what Colonel Jacobson had to say, I'd really look forward to reading what they've already put together to save us a hell of a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And he is a guy from the Corps of Engineers, so he understands the concept of steal shamelessly when it comes to avoiding work where it's unnecessary. But I'm just kind of curious. You know, I'm the class historian for my class, and when I first became the historian, which was well after graduation, when I asked who the AOG historian was, I got shunted over to Colonel Olszewski, and he kind of talked to me about the way things ought to be. But since he's gone, haven't really had that same connection. So I'm kind of curious that somebody in the organization at the AOG is ultimately the care officer, that, you know, literally the buck stops there.
So historian, I would say, is different from care officer.
Yeah, I got it. But I'm just basically saying that's what my experience has been.
So what we've developed over the last few years in the Memorial Support Program are the 3 phases of Memorial Support.
Right.
We've talked a little bit about the pre-planning checklist, and the second phase would be, you know, when somebody decides to make West Point their final resting place, we're there for them. And then the third phase is this new survivor community outreach, and that really was born from the focus groups and trying to collect all of these good ideas so that we could get them out in a manner like this, to develop more care coordinators, to share the good ideas, to make sure that, you know, there's a commo calendar so that there's not a grad sitting home alone and not talking to anybody all day. There's a calendar that people are reaching out to them. And so we're collecting all of this information and sharing it the best we can. Obviously, we can't do it all. We need everybody's efforts to do this. But I think this is the grassroots effort to start this. It was born, honestly, from when we're saying goodbye to a family after burying their loved one, to say
Right.
to them, you know, how we're going to stay connected. And we don't want them to lose the connection that they've had with West Point throughout their lives just because their grad has passed or their parents have passed. I think it was John mentioned the demographics. We've actually identified the 5 demographics, first being the grad, who is the survivor, and then the surviving spouse, and then the parent of a grad who has sadly had to bury their child. There's the young family that has different needs from somebody who loses a partner after, you know, a long life. And then there is the, what is my 5th demographic? I just went blank. There are 5 demographics. And so we are focusing on those and trying to reach all of those through the survivor community. We also have Sue Irons, who's also on this call, who is
Right.
handling the veterans aspect of it. It was a long time coming, but we got Sue. She was part-time for 10 minutes because they didn't believe that we needed somebody full-time, but after 10 minutes, they realized that we do. And so Sue is happily on board full-time, and she is a huge resource for our grads and their families. And so it's a team effort, you know, but I would say that we are on the path further than we've been in the past. And so I would say that it's with memorial support. Now, that being said, memorial articles are in communications and marketing,
Right.
and Column File is within communications and
Right.
marketing. So it is a consolidated team effort, and you know, we communicate frequently and well. Desiree has taken over from Marilee. She has big boots to fill,
Yep.
but she's doing a great job, and she's expanding efforts, like to your point of sharing that information of where grads are buried. But we rely on grads to self-report. You know, of the 400 and plus grads that die every year, we bury 160 people. Not all of them are grads. Some of them are spouses. So that's not even 25% of the losses that we face every year. And so we rely on like John's team of tax to help us, his group, to help report. The updating of information cannot be stressed enough. You know, when somebody dies or when somebody is divorced and there's a new spouse, if you don't call and tell us, we don't know. And so any of that information that can be shared, any of these tips and ideas that we have. I was talking to a grad at a Founders Day recently, and he said, oh yeah, our class gets online and we have a beer on Friday nights and we sit and chat. And I said, okay, the next time you lose a classmate, I want you to hit the record button and start talking about that classmate and share the stories that can then be sent to the family. Because what better resource for firsthand fabulous stories than you guys, right? Nobody knows them. Nobody knows that experience better than you. And so we're collecting all of these ideas and we're sharing them all in the hopes that our reach will be expanded.
Okay, the other thing that I would ask, and I'm new to the whole care function, is if the AOG is going to reach out to a survivor, that the class gets an opportunity to provide a name in that contact. You know, if you send a letter, I think our class ought to be able to say, this person is going to reach out from the class to try to make contact with you, or however you want to word it. But the idea that it's not just the AOG reaching out, it's the class or the company or someone
Right. So currently what we're doing is sending the surviving spouse a letter that says they're now an associate member, and it
Right.
has the class leadership in that letter and their contact information. But we can certainly modify that for those classes that have a care person in the role to include that. And I see Jen shaking her head because she's the one currently doing those letters. And we can send whatever information
Yeah.
the class would prefer. So yeah, that's a good one too.
And then the last thing I would ask about is Colonel Jacobson mentioned constituents. Constituents, I'll say that I have some concerns about that because, I've got a list of the ex-cadets from our class and it totals 575 people. If we all of a sudden try to offer to them the same level of tracking and monitoring and updating and memorial articles and all the rest of it, that becomes about, I don't know, 1 2/3 times the workload that we currently try to do. Colonel Jacobson, I understand from you that these people have contacted you and asked to become part of the class again.
Only those that have made an effort to reach out to anybody in the company, had an ongoing relationship. A couple of them joined our prayer Zooms. It's
Yeah.
not, we don't reach out to everybody.
Right, no outreach.
We wait for them to come to us. So
Right.
they've overtly, asked the AOG to include their data. There's several that have done that. They're associate members. But yeah, we don't try to
Right,
enlarge it. We just accept whoever wants to be there.
yeah, all
And
right,
it's not a big number for the class right now.
okay.
I can give you numbers, but the associate members are probably less than 20, maybe less than 10.
No, I did, listen, the only way I found out about that there was such a thing as constituents is I was bouncing this list of our deceased graduates and where they're interned, and I found a memorial article on a guy that wasn't a graduate. I was like, well, what the heck is this? And I had to call AOG, and Desiree,
Yeah.
made me smarter about it.
Yeah, well, whenever I get the roster of these classmates, there's always 4 on there that didn't graduate with us. 2 are after and 2 during.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? No? All right.
I've got a quick comment if
Okay,
we have time.
sure.
One of the program, I'm Rick Cantwell, class of 75, and we have a fairly robust memorial committee, and we're just now getting into the survivor. So thank you for the speakers for guiding us in that path. But one of the things that have been very connecting for the widows is we have a digital memorial plaque that for every we've lost 110 out of our class, 104 classmates and 6 associate members like John was talking about. But this memorial plaque we send to the company rep and they send to the family digitally initially. And then if they so desire, they can get a plaque that the company presents to the family. And we have presented it both to the spouse and the kids. And that connectivity seems to be real strong in getting them included in a lot of the class activities. And they want to know when are we doing our memorial at our reunions and what's going to be shown. So some type of connectivity with the company to the family is really important. And one of the things we did so that we are timely in this process is we have a draft plaque of all members of our class. And the only thing missing is the date of death. So when we're notified, we get the digital plaque in, within the day of the notification that someone has passed. And we get more comments back from the family. And I think that will be a very important part of our survivor program, is to keep that connectivity through programs just like that. But thank all of you for what you do. We're very appreciative of helping us support both our classmates and their families through this process.
Thank you. And we're going to tag you in to get a copy of that digital plaque so that we can share it with others if you don't mind.
Yeah, I sent it to Desiree, and we are actually we're we have 66 memorial articles done, and we'd like to meet the goal that the speaker has, have it up to date within 2 years. So we have somebody assigned to all but 14 of those classmates, and a lot of them got out after 5, and there was a lot of information. So we have investigated how to prompt that memorial article for the company reps or the other by using Chat GPT. And we have been very successful initially of getting kind of a draft memorial article that we can then send to the company reps that will prompt others to comment on, and then get it into a format that they can present to the families to go toward a memorial article that could be submitted to AOG. But those type of activity, and we're not that technology. We've got some guys that are really good at it, and they've volunteered to take these 14 and use AI and develop those templates for the company reps. And so it's going to be a very exciting. We'd like to have all of our articles done by our 50th reunion, which is coming up next year.
Great. That's terrific. And those templates, I'm sure, will help. Everything helps, right? And once it's done, it's such a wonderful thing that people are like, why was that so hard? Because it is a wonderful thing and people read them. So, all right.
Well, his comment on keeping the column file information up to date is so correct. And, we continue to encourage our classmates to do that, because he's right. That's when Desiree sends out the information to the point of contact of what's available there, it really helps guide that.
It absolutely does. We can't stress it enough. Any other questions before I wrap up? No? Bill, did you have a question?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to just again thank everybody for being here. We will collate all of these suggestions and combine them with the first ones that we received on the first webinar. And then our efforts next will include a mass letter invitation to those we have as survivors in our database. And we are still working on cleaning up that database to make sure it's accurate. And then we're going to invite the survivors to join the community and be a part of this support effort. We'll be seeking also volunteers, because once they've said, yes, we want to join this community, and they're validated, i.e. they say, this is my grad's name, whether it's themselves or a partner. Once they've been validated, they'll be sent a welcome letter. Welcome to the community. Along with that letter will be a questionnaire. What do you want from the community? Do you want to be part of a small group of 3 or 4 other people, either geographically based or decade based or class based? And how can we help you? Do you want to attend events? Do you want to be a part of a forum? And so we'll ask these questions in the hopes of building what their needs are, not what we think their needs are. And so that will be going out later this fall as well. And then we'll be asking for some ambassadors to help connect those people, because we can't do it on our own. We need help from you. And so to facilitate those forums and support the programs and to assist us with supporting the survivor community. There are thousands of people on that list, and I'm hoping that we get a good response and we can succeed in our mission to support and connect and communicate with this special group of people. So if nobody has anything else, I will say thank you for being here. Thank you for what you do. We cannot do it alone. It is a team effort. There are so many people in need, and I think that each of our efforts are appreciated. So I thank you and look forward to our next webinar.
Thank you.
Great. Take care, everybody.